Assembly Member Pidgeon.
Elizabeth line trains. Can you give an absolute guarantee to Londoners that all other forms of lending, including from the Public Works Loan Board or other investment banks, have been considered and explored and would not provide a cheaper alternative?
Yes.
Okay. Will you publish, Mr Mayor, the advice and information you received on this arrangement to assure yourself that this was the cheapest deal?
We obviously, it's very difficult to publish that in advance of the commercial negotiations, but afterwards absolutely can provide transparency around that.
And you'll be, of course, the TfL board, which is a public meeting takes place, and there's a very good finance committee which discusses all these sorts of things. And one of the things I do as the chair of the TfL board is to make sure the finance committee are doing the due diligence required to address the concerns that you're not unreasonably raising.
But it's not actually in any of the documents. We've looked through months and months of the Finance Committee. We can't find anything detailed in writing on that. It may have been in a part 2, but we can't see that. But can I just ask also, when
it's where the reason why things are in part 2 is because they're commercially sensitive. There's a very good reason why.
So in terms of publishing that information, will you also publish what this leaseback arrangement will cost for each and every year of the lease arrangement so that Londoners can understand the full cost of it? Recently, events relating to Carillion show the public sector can make fundamental errors when entering into contracts, and the National Audit Office has recently been really critical of some PFI deals. This is a change in policy for crossrail. This was never anticipated. Can you absolutely assure us that Londoners aren't going to be paying a higher price for this when you do have the powers to borrow finances to pay for the new Piccadilly line trains? You could ask to do that, and as long as it was seen as prudent by your finance officer, it could be signed off. Have you explored that, and whether that might be a cheaper option than effectively selling off here the family silver?
Look, there are a number of assumptions and presumptions made in that question that I've got to untangle, because in answering that question, it may be assumed that the question is based on a conception that is correct. So firstly, this is not a PFI. Secondly, I don't accept there's been a change in policy from TfL.
Crossrail, I said.
I don't accept there's been a change of policy. And it's worth just explaining that if it's the case that a sale and leaseback is more expensive than another option, then of course we will choose the other option.
Okay. So you'll show that you've looked at whether you could increase your borrowing, which I am told from finance you're able to do, as long as it's signed off by your finance officer. So that has been looked at.
And the TfL borrowing position in terms of the limits it can borrow to are set out at pages 95 and 96 of the budget, so that's available.
The other thing is, in terms of the arrangement, can you assure us that it will not be so inflexible that, say, for example, new technology develops, it would be possible to alter the contract without the public purse having to pay over the top?
We're in danger, Chair, of the Assembly drafting a contract that's not been agreed into, including changes that can or cannot be made. I mean, we've got to wait and see what negotiations take place, what the deal is, and what we can do. But of course, we're going to be as flexible as we can. But this is not a PFI scheme, and it's a scheme used by the previous 2 mayors and other transport initiatives. And if it was the case that we could invest without needing to consider all other options, we'd of course want to do so. But we're considering the best way to make sure we can invest in 4 lines being modernised, increase in the healthy and cycling programme, invest in the infrastructure we're going to do, and all the other public transport infrastructure we're committed to. You'll be aware.
Mr Mayor, no. The issue is not about all the other transport infrastructure. This is specifically for the Piccadilly line. And we're only asking because it is new, and that's why Assembly Member Copley is raising it, and I am, because this is new for Crossrail. And so all we want to know is, will you make sure as you're negotiating this that it's not going to be so inflexible that you're tied into something which we can learn from previous other sorts of contracts that have been right across the public sector?
Of course, we seek to learn the lessons of mistake in relation to other contracts. We've seen the mess the government's making with Carillion, and I'll try and make sure that we learn those lessons going forward. But it's worth reminding ourselves that as far as investment in transport for London is concerned, these are record amounts we're investing across TfL.
Okay, and finally, passenger rates have been falling for the past 2 years, Mr Mayor. Last year's budget forecast that your income would be over 140 million more than it was. You're planning that you're going to have a 1.2 billion increase in passenger income for the next 3 years. When was the last time TfL actually achieved that sort of number?
Assembly Member Pidgeon, it's a wonderful question, but you can't have an answer.